Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm very excited about our call today, and I am recording live from GEPAR. And I guess is this the media room? What do we call this?
Your
I
media
called it
room.
media center on my, but I don't think that was the right thing.
Media room or Ernesto's room.
Ernesto's room. This is Ernesto's kind of like, some people have like their garage or their man caves. This is Ernesto's media room. So anyway, and for those that don't know, Ernesto is sitting right across from us, and hopefully he's not going to make any funny faces or do anything that's going to make us laugh. So I've been trying to get this gentleman to this call for about 6 months, maybe 4 months. I don't know. We had a couple of dates, and then I think I had to cancel one. You had to cancel one. I'm not really sure. And in fact, I kind of just gave up. And then, we had a deficit for this call today. And out of the blue, I said, you know what, I'm going to throw a Hail Mary. And you said yes. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just really what happened is these last 2 months are finally when I don't have to travel.
That's great.
But we start back up in February. So
good. I'm glad we got you. And actually, I think we're going to also grab Ernesto one day, kind of talk about governmental affairs and some other things that are going on here.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning of the new year, we'll have some more conversations around GEPAR, NAR, Texas Realtors, local government, all the good stuff that's out there to talk about. So I want to obviously get to know you a little bit. We always go through that. But then I obviously have a lot of questions, which we've talked about. And Tony's been kind enough to say I'll be transparent, whatever, bring it on. And, and we'll go from there. And then certainly we want to leave some time for you guys to have questions as well. So Tony, let's just start. You're from El Paso, but give us a little history of Tony. And, I found out some stuff earlier. I had no idea kind of, how did you land here from, I guess, being in healthcare? So give us kind of the lowdown on that.
Okay, yeah. So I was born and raised in El Paso, graduate from Eastwood High School, and graduate from University of Phoenix with a bachelor's degree in business administration. So I started out in healthcare, and I got into healthcare because I started in property management.
No.
So right out of high school, I was in distributive education.
Okay.
So I went to school half day and then to work. So I actually started as a leasing agent at an apartment complex.
Full circle.
So started in property management. Then my stepfather was a physician, family practitioner.
Okay.
He called me one day and said, Tony, I really need some help. So I became his administrator. Once we did that, we started getting involved with the hospitals back then, which was Columbia HCA.
Okay.
They started a new program doing some outpatient development stuff. They came in and asked me, they didn't know anything about physician practice management, just the hospital side. They had a consultant came in. They didn't have it right. I kind of started stepping in. Before I knew it, corporate came down and offered me a position and moved me to Nashville.
Wow.
So I went to Nashville, and then that's when I traveled all over the place to all these different ones, opening these outpatient development, and that's what I was doing.
So how long were you in Nashville?
Nashville was only there about a year and a half.
Okay.
And one of our accounts was Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
So my wife doesn't like the cold weather.
Okay.
So the CEO in Phoenix said, hey, we got both these centers are going to open. We'd like to offer you a job to come run them. Nice. And we have some physician practices that we do. We'd like you to be a part and run those as well. So that's what I did. We made the move. Called my wife. I said, hey, they're offering me a job here in Phoenix. She said, take it. And I'm like, well, let me at least explain. She goes, no, take it. Closer to home, and it's not so cold.
Sure.
Yeah. So did that for about 8-9 years.
Okay.
Then
you had a good run in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we decided to move back to El Paso. So when I came back, I was going to stay in healthcare. I hadn't completed my bachelor's degree at the time.
Okay.
Jacob St. Throne's a good friend of mine. We started in the industry together. Of course, he's the CEO now at UMC. And he said, Tony, you need to have your bachelor's. I'm ready to give you a position right now. So I went back, and then I decided, well, I had a background. My dad was in the car business for a lot of years. I had a good friend of mine, Vince Greco, that was in Montana. We teamed together, and I did that while I went to finish off my degree.
Okay.
But I didn't want just that to be on my resume. I went from a director of being at a hospital in Phoenix to a car salesman.
Right.
So
you did have a salesman side.
So it came up about the Central Appraisal District. So that came into my the chief appraiser there called me and said, I heard you're gonna leave us.
Mhm.
Said, I'd like to offer you the job.
So
So that's how it happened.
was the appraisal review board, was that a voluntary position or was that a paid position?
Yeah, it's paid. It's
Okay.
volunteer, but it's paid. I
Okay,
mean,
gotcha.
yeah. So, and it
Nice.
still today, it's the same thing, but a lot of
Okay.
people don't realize it is a paid position.
Interesting. Okay. So how long were you at CAD again?
16 years as an employee, so
16.
20 years total with 4 years on ARB and 16 years with them.
Very interesting. And so at CAD, obviously been involved at kind of every level here.
Mhm.
Once you're in CAD, you're involved in some of the politics of the side as well. What's going on, what changes are being made in the city, laws, regulations,
Correct.
red tape, all the fun stuff.
Mhm.
What brought you here? Yeah, how did we get, I mean, besides maybe a job opening, I get that,
No.
but tell me, how did you go from CAD
Right.
to come to this? And then we, of course, we want to talk about, you know, once you came, all the problems started. So we'll talk about that in a second,
Right.
but
Right.
tell us about that.
First of all, I had no idea of the opening
Okay,
of this position.
right,
It was a couple of realtors that I know, and of course I dealt with many of them at CAD because I was in
Yes.
charge of appeals and protesting, but a
Mhm.
couple of them, we went to lunch and one of them just said, Tony, you need to apply for our AE position. And I was like, what's an AE?
Right, right.
So they started telling me and I was like, you know, I don't know. I was like, I mean, 4 years, 5 years max. I was already on cruise control at CAD after being there 16 years.
Right.
I mean, you know, in
It's
4 or
comfortable.
5 years, I retired full salary, and I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know if I want to start over like that. But they kept pushing, and I said, well, look, I'll start looking into it. And I
Right.
just said, well, we already sent you the application.
Mhm.
So I did. I went home, started doing the research, and that's what really got me. Is
Okay.
researching the organization, what it was about, and I could just see a vision. I've always been a huge advocate when I was at CAD for education.
Right.
That was a big problem from the state and even
Mhm.
local level is there's no education on property tax. And they didn't want to do it. I mean, I kept bringing it up. They just didn't want to do it. They wanted to stay very limited. So I saw an opportunity and said, you know what, if they're not going to do it, let's let the realtors do it. They're in a perfect position.
Love it. So let me get this right. You leave CAD, you have 5 years left to leave with, I guess, full pension,
right off
vested, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And did your wife think you were nuts?
The whole family thought it was.
Okay, yeah. So
Like,
friends,
why are you
family,
starting over
exactly,
again
yeah.
at this stage in life?
Right. Yeah. That was the same conversation I kind of got when I told people I was coming to El
Mhm.
Paso. So they were like, what? So, you know, but you know, obviously when you feel you can make a difference and you can be a change and make a change, I think there's something about that, at least in my journey, it's been that way. And I'm sure it was the same for you. So you've been here now just under 2 years?
Yeah, right. About a year and 7 months.
Year and 7 months. Okay. And you come here and everything's going pretty good. And then, I mean, the wheels fall off. I mean, at a national level, I mean, at industry level. And so it's obviously all your fault. You brought all this change. Now I'm joking, but I do want to talk about that.
Sure.
You know, you made a comment earlier when we were having our conversation. You kind of saw some of the writing on the wall and you saw some things. So you knew there was going to be an uphill climb in some of this. Maybe not at a local level as much, even though that's a whole other side of dealing with all the different personalities of the voluntary directors and everything else and leadership and executive committee. That's enough as it is, along with dealing with the membership of 3,100 plus people plus affiliates and everything else. So tell me a little bit about that. So you before you took the role, what were you thinking in regards to what did you know at that point? You knew that the lawsuits were in progress? Okay.
Yeah, so there was talk about it, especially when we go all to these conferences,
Right.
which is, you know, I can see why it's mandatory and why it's important for the
Mhm.
association and our members to have somebody out there and to bring information in. I mean,
Right.
there's no doubt there's critical. There's a lot going on out there.
Right.
And you're going to hear more. It's almost like when you go to these conferences, you're getting into the trenches.
Mhm.
Sometimes not even during the sessions, but it's who you're talking to afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, behind the scenes.
Yeah,
That's when you
it's at
start
the
getting
bar
out
when you start
everybody's-
hearing all the real stories.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of drinks in, all of a sudden, oh, this is the real story. This is the rest of the story, maybe.
Right.
Okay, so you were was some of that from CAD as well? You were hearing some of that on the CAD side as well?
No, I never did. On the cat side, they didn't really know anything. And, you know, and I stay in touch with some people over there, but they never
Okay.
had heard anything about the lawsuit until it hit the papers and stuff. But
Sure.
prior to, no.
So you get in and you know that's coming on. I think when you got here, there wasn't really any rumblings yet, or at NAR as far as. So who was president? Was Sears president?
When I first, oh yeah, no,
it-
it
it-
was what was her name? She's blonde hair, glasses. I can't remember her name right now.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, it wasn't Sears.
Okay.
Sears came in. He came in after the
It
lawsuit.
came in after the lawsuit, right? Okay,
Yeah,
got you.
and
So
then there was issues with whoever. First, there was issues with the first president. Remember, I
Right.
think there was some issues with personal type issues.
yes.
And he got out, and then she
Right.
came in, and then once the lawsuit started, I don't know what happened. Something happened in there,
Right.
so she had to resign, and then here comes Kevin Sears.
Was there a time that either you or maybe your wife said, "What the hell have I done? What the hell have I got myself into?"
You know, honestly, yeah, I mean, I joke around and say, man, you know, this wasn't in my job description, and they certainly didn't bring it up in
Right,
my interview process. But no, actually, it was challenging, but I was okay because I felt that what it comes down to is who we are. It's
Yes.
still, you know, they're doing, yes, I'm not going to ever say that NAR is not important. You know, they
Of
are, they
course,
have an
of
important
course.
role, but it's still about here at home and what we're doing. And I told our board that. I said, you know, it's up to us. You know, there's nothing to fear because worst case scenarios, we already have everything in place to
Right.
continue on our own. If there is no state and there is no national association, we can still do it.
Right.
So I could see that.
Which we're seeing some of the potential decoupling of that, or at least questioned. Alabama and some other places that have already, like Washington, they've started doing some of these things. So that's very interesting. So you get here, the wheels fall off, and it's all Tony's fault. And of course, I'm joking. But you know, we were having some conversations earlier just about some of the different things that have been going on the national level versus the local level. We were also about talking about some of the things that are unique in the El Paso market. You know, it's interesting when Penny was one of my customers, I guess, and friends when I first met her. You know, she would always say, "Oh, you don't understand. The El Paso market's different." And of course, I would just kind of laugh at her and say, "Penny, I'm doing this too long and go all across the country, and you know, market to market, people are people." That was always my thought process. I learned very quickly that Penny was 100% right. It is different in El Paso, and I think it's different in general. We were just talking about, for example, membership here, and what we've noticed, and I know many of you guys have noticed, is that we have so many younger people that are getting into the industry, and at least into our company. And Tony's been noticing the same thing here at from new agent orientation and whatnot. However, the average age of a realtor is still in the 50s, according to NAR, for at least for 2023 it was. I don't think they've released the numbers for 2024. What is there a dynamic that's different in El Paso? What do you think is there anything now that you've been in here for, sub 2 years, you've gone to all you've gone to all the state level meetings, you've gone to the NAR meetings, which by the way, I don't miss any of those. I used to have to go to all those every year. I had to go to multiple states. So I miss none of those. But anyway, so, I'm glad you're going for me. Tell me about that. Like, what do you think is unique from what you learned from other AEs across the country, maybe in the state, to El Paso?
When you mentioned it, it's in every industry, because when I was in healthcare, it was El Paso's market was very different because I travel along too, especially when I was at the corporate offices in Nashville.
Right.
Our market here was very different than everywhere else. Same thing in property tax.
Yes.
The appraisal districts, because we traveled with there, and it was unique. There was something unique about El Paso, especially the market. Because when you were hearing all this, back in 07, 06, when all the foreclosures were going on, we weren't getting hit like that here in El Paso.
No.
I mean, and the market price didn't really plummet like it did there. Traditionally, El Paso's market has just kind of always stayed steady.
100%.
So there's something people always joke when I'm out there, what's in the water out there, or what, why is it so different? I always answer, it's the people.
Yeah.
I said, it's us as a community. I really believe that.
One of the stats, and I wish I had pulled that stat up for this call, and you guys might know, but I know that El Paso as well, the average age, or the age here of census is much lower than a lot of others. So we have a younger population in El Paso. I think that's dynamic. It's interesting. I was interviewing a tech company that we have a partnership with, and they've been pushed so hard to move to Austin to get seed money and things like that, because everybody's talking about, that's where you can find all the people, the skill levels and things like that. And of course their answer is no, we want to stay here. They're from here, and they feel that there's such an opportunity here in El Paso because of the younger population here. So I think we're seeing that, and I guess to your point, maybe we're seeing it across things. So here we are now. The lawsuits have been. We got. I think it was couple weeks ago. Judge signed off on the lawsuits.
Right.
Of course, we've also heard the DOJ said doesn't mean squat. We can still come after you for this and that. And of course, I mean, at the end of the day, you and I told you kind of our messaging is you got to keep your eye on the ball. Just keep doing what you're doing. Until we're told otherwise, until we figure this out. What are you doing to? You got membership that's scared. You've got an industry that is to a certain point.
Even staff.
Yeah. What does this look like a year from now, 2 years? What are you doing to kind of calm the waters around your members? Because you've got to have people, such as ourselves, and I would think even probably a lot of smaller brokers that are even, that don't maybe have a support of either a franchise or don't have the legal support or some of the other things maybe some of the larger companies can do. How, what are you doing to calm the waters and calm the fears, so to say?
So to me, and I go back to what my experience is and how I've been throughout life. And I've always said it's foresight. And when this thing first happened and broke out, I immediately had a concern when the copycat lawsuits come out, is this isn't going to end, even when it ends.
Yes.
Because these attorneys are going to be out there and they sense blood in the water and they're going to keep trying to see, well, hey, where can we find out this? What's next? What's this?
Yes.
And to me, that's what we got to prepare for. And the way I foresee us preparing is right here at home. Yes, NAR's, important, so is Texas Realtors, but I'm concerned with us here at home.
Right.
So we got to do a good job here. This is where we've got to reinforce and create the value with our citizens here in the public here in El Paso. So that's what I want to do. And fortunately, I feel like one of the vehicles, and we talked about this earlier, is going to be my experience in property tax.
Yes.
Because it is such a critical issue throughout Texas. It's not just here in El Paso, but there's no education.
Here. Especially here because the end, it is what it is. We are one of the more poorer cities. I hate to use the word poorer. I mean, what's the politically correct word? I mean, the average household income is much lower than a lot of the other cities.
But you're looking at a lot of our tax rates are higher than anywhere in the state.
Correct.
So how are we gonna solve that? And really, there's several ways that I see right now that we're currently working on to attack that.
Right.
So what I foresaw first is I wanted to take the property tax, and I held some workshops this year.
He did.
And I wanted to.
He didn't hold one, not two. He held four, by the way, because it was sitting room only. There were so many people that wanted to be a part of that, and that was critical, I think, because it is such a big thing, especially when interest rates were going up so high. Insurance has skyrocketed.
Right.
The debt to income ratio for these people, they can't afford a lot of them can afford a home.
It's property taxes are
100%.
a huge part of affordable housing. 100%. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with the realtors and get you all educated first, because I think that we're the best source for the public because of all our clients that we work with. And I knew it was going to be also a great marketing tool for everybody, because especially in past clients, because now when you get this knowledge, you can go onto CAD's website, even past, and see, hey, and make calls to people and say, instead of just saying, hey, if you know anybody that's looking for a home, don't forget me or whatever.
Yes.
Now you can call and say, hey, but you don't have your homestead exemption on your property. You don't have an over 65 exemption on your property. And then when you tell them, they say, well, what can we do? I said, you're going to go down to CAD, you're going to fill out the application, and you've been in your home for 3 or 4 years. They're going to go back 2 years and you're going to get a refund. So those are great things that you're bringing to the community and to clients, because they're going to remember you for something like that, especially when they get the check in the mail, because I've done it for years where I've told people that I've known and they've gone in and they got that refund and they come back and just like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Being a new person here, one of the things that has blown my mind is the advocation by realtors for their clients going, especially if they'd sold them a home. They've already been paid. They sold them a home, and now these people got a tax bill, which is maybe way more than what it was. And these agents going and either guiding them or helping them, or in some cases going with them to try to protest these. And it's unlike anything I've ever seen, working across multiple states and whatnot. And I think it says a lot about our profession as well, because that's a game changer and a life-changing event for some of these people. We might look at and say, okay, well, we got their taxes lowered $2,000 or $3,000. That's $2,000-3,000 is the difference between, people in some cases for a year, paying insurance on a car or whatever it could be. It's an interesting thing that I've seen here, and I think you bring a dynamic of helping us help our people.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and so it's extremely important. There's so many things. All of this, my whole goal and my foresight is, how are we going to create value?
Yes.
For us as realtors, especially with all this negative media and everything going on throughout the US. How are we going to create it? These are ways we're going to do it.
Right.
Because people are going to remember that, and they're going to say, no, our realtors here are looking out for our best interests always, whether we're a client or not. We're doing a lot on the government affairs side. I mean, it's huge now. We have literally gotten into a position now where we're at the table. We've got an open door with who we have, and we have 6 candidates that are in the runoffs.
Yes.
That all 6 we have endorsed and supported that are in this race. So by the way, it's extremely important to get out and vote in these right now, because you've got till now, I think till December 10th for early voting, and December 14th is the election.
Yes.
But the turnout right now has been really low, in these compared to the November election.
Sure.
And now it's anybody's game, so it's like, they start over from zero. But we really need these, to push these people over the finish line, because it's going to mean a huge difference in what we do, and especially when it comes to city ordinances.
Yes.
Whether, on all sides of real estate, property, from property management to residential to commercial, you name it, property tax as well.
I know that obviously it's GEPAR's candidate that they've endorsed is Renard Johnson.
That's correct.
And who's also a fellow realtor. And and I think I spoke with Ernesto earlier about that, who heads up the governmental affairs. I think I don't know what the exact title is, but something like that. I think it's interesting because one of the things that Ernesto said to me that really kind of hit home is the access piece. This is a person that we feel we can get on the phone. This is a person that we can have a conversation with. If there are things that are affecting this city or our people or our membership, and I think that's something we have to always think about in many cases and everything we do. And so I think that was it was a smart answer, because I could sit here and say, well, some people say that he's not as big on property taxes or this or lowering property, whatever it might be. And you're not going to agree with every candidate no matter what, ever. And so it's finding, who can you work with. So I found that. How do you guys, I'd like to ask you that, how do you leverage, just like NAR leverages at a national level, how do you leverage our membership at a local level?
Okay. Well, one thing when it comes to the elections and who we're looking at is we realize it takes more than one person.
Yes.
Because even if the mayor, and we have the mayor, but he's still got all those city council guys, people with him.
Of course.
So if you're going to get anything done, there has to be communication and there has to be agreement among them. I can tell you right now, we went to an event where there was Renard Johnson and 3 others of the districts. And what was the most impressive for me is they were all on the same page. And all in agreement of where they want to take and where they want to go, with El Paso. That's going to be critical, because that's when we can really get things done. So it's so important and critical for us to have rapport, with them, because it's not that we're going in and telling them to change their vote.
Right.
The difference is we're coming in there with data and we're telling them and explaining. And a lot of, it happened with the impact fees. It's happened with the short-term rentals as well. So when they get that additional information they did not have, it changed their mind. It changed their view.
How much, this would be, I think, an interesting, at least it's a quite interesting question for me, and I would hope for our people on the call. How much does TreePack play a role on that local level? Can you lean on them and say, this is something that's going to impact us in a bad way? What did they swoop in, help you if there are needs, or how does that work?
Correct. So with TreePack, I mean, it's critical, not just the local level, from the state level and even national level.
Sure.
But state is critical because, that property tax relief bill that we got, that $100,000 off the school side of our taxes, that was an effort between local realtors and Texas realtors to get that passed.
Correct.
So it's important.
That's great.
So, we have that minimum and I bring it up every time we bring it up in new member orientation. It's just, that $35.
Yes.
That's all it takes. But you need to realize we're out there. It's to protect our profession. That's what we're doing. And it's huge, because sometimes they want to make these moves and these decisions that will directly affect our profession.
Sure.
And it's bad. It's not going to be good for us. So, the old thing I always ask everybody, I mean, is it easier to sell a home if it's affordable?
Sure.
As opposed to non-affordable?
Right.
And all this comes into play. So, and that's what we want to do. Now next year, we got laid out to where we're going to do a so much better job. We're going to really start on a PR campaign. Now that this thing is over November 26th, now I want to move forward in creating, what's the value of us as realtors?
Right.
And it's not only that, it's also the value, and then the MLS. The MLS is another thing I'm CEO over the MLS.
Yes.
I don't like, when I first started here, I never understood this boundaries thing, and everybody talked about these boundaries, but then I'm like, yeah, but then we have IDX feeds to Realtor.com,
Yes.
Zillow. So it's already out there to everybody, but they're getting all the credit for it, and their data is coming from us.
Yes.
So we need to get that message, especially here at home. I've already written to also the NAR to start looking at that. We've seen their commercials. They're great, to create value for us as agents, but we need to go further than that. They need to start marketing, I told them, on the agent agreements, the new buyer's agent agreement, because a lot of public don't know about it.
Yeah.
And it seems so foreign to them. Like, wait, I've bought properties before and looked, and I never had to sign something like this.
Sure.
We need the help of getting that message out there
Yes.
that this is the norm. This is the new norm. So those are the things that I'm constantly advocating for. And I want to bring here at home. I want people to know what the MLS is as far as the public, and where that data goes, and how important it is of how accurate the information
For
is,
sure,
because of what we do.
And I think, we talked about this earlier. I think it's got to be a two-pronged approach. I think it's certainly the external piece, which is to the public, which, NAR has been trying to do that for years with their ad campaigns and things like that. And I still don't think the general public knows the difference between what a realtor is and a real estate agent. And so I just think and I don't know if that's just something at the end of the day that is, even maybe the only thing that's helped with the lawsuits is maybe that it has kind of brought that to light a little bit.
Yeah, refocused
But I still think at the end of the day, the general public doesn't know that. My bigger concern is the internal factor. It's showing the value. And so, and as I was telling you yesterday, we have agents that will kind of come to us and say, well, what's the value? And of course, I say, well, the value is the data. Number one, with MLS, if you don't have the data, then where are we going to get the data? And we could certainly say, as I said earlier, well, companies like us who have the most listing inventory in the market can certainly say, well, we got the data, we've got this, we've got that.
Right.
But the reality is we need the data. Number two is, besides the data, is the forms, and that's another thing. So our state, Texas Realtors provides so many of the forms versus TREC providing, minimal forms, where many other states, it is the real estate commission that provides all the forms. And so that creates a vacuum where a lot of people say, well, then what value does the realtors bring now, or the membership piece of it? I think there's a lot of people, and I've probably even taken this approach in some places at some point, was when compensation went out on MLS, all of a sudden, again, the mindset always was the MLS is the contract. It's the contract that says, if you're a member here, you're getting paid X amount of dollars or commissions or whatever. And now that that's gone, what does that keep people from doing? And I think that's, to me, I'm not here to tell you to do your job. What am I other than, my experience of being at a local, state, and serving on different national committees and stuff in my past. I mean, there's got to be that value, especially as we drive so much young membership, because young membership is kind of looking at this and going, well, what's that? So I'm following up with a question. I'm sorry, that was a lot.
Okay.
I think, what is it do you think you're going to do to try to drive the value to the members? I understand, sure, we have all this different training, we have all these different things, we have all orientation, events and whatever else. But the reality is in many cases, the same people coming over and over again.
Right.
You know that, and I know that. It's the same with us. I don't know how many people are on this call, and I can look at them, and for a large number of them, it's the same people come to the same calls every week. So how do we get, the young blood, the new people, or people that are kind of, I'm over it, back involved? Any thoughts on that?
Right. So one thing I want to say is, I think we need to do a better job of communicating, especially to the public, the value that we bring to them,
Okay.
and how we're constantly looking out for their best interest. They have to see that.
Right.
And I don't think we've done a great job at that. You know, and even with, if you're representing buyers, you know, we've been so customer service oriented. I
Yes.
feel that you always just say, oh, don't worry about it. We're going
Right.
to take care of this. And we've never communicated what actually we're doing for them.
Yes.
And now we're going to have to fight that uphill battle because of this change with
sure.
the mandatory agreements. But I think for our members, there's several things. I mean, it's still all about what are we building, you know, our image in the community. And I don't do that alone. And this staff here doesn't do it alone. It's got to come from the members. That's why we have all these, you know, the committee, you know, that we have. Now, I feel right now, there's twofold, because I want to reach out, obviously those just coming into the business, because I feel that's the best time, because they're learning it, and they're learning it this way from the beginning. So there's no.
And it's generational.
Right.
Tony. I mean,
that's true.
And that's, anyway, keep going on. But I think, you know, that's the thing that scares me about this industry more than anything else. You look at the average age, you know, when some of those old guys at some point say, okay, it's time to hang it up, you know, or do we have these younger people that are still going to come in and say, I'm ready to take over?
Yeah. So it's, to me, one thing that's absolutely critical, and I covered this in my interview, because I asked the question to all the board members that interviewed me. By the way, it was like 26 people interviewing, and each of them got to ask me 2 questions.
Firing squad.
It was unbelievable.
Right.
So what I asked them is, okay, I understand the MLS and the value of the MLS,
Sure.
and that's like a no-brainer.
Yes.
I said, but if there was no MLS, would you still keep all the members as part of the association? And when I looked around the room, there was like, probably not. And I said, that's a problem.
Yes.
I'm a true believer that each business will always be able to stand on its own.
Correct.
So we have to bring the value, more value to the membership. Now, at the time, I was figuring, okay, MLS is okay, it's on its way.
Right.
There was no lawsuit.
Yeah.
So now I got to work on both sides, you know,
For sure.
for value. So, but that's what we're doing. So when I'm talking to these new members coming in, you know, I tell them, don't have blinders on.
Yes.
I said, you are a licensed realtor, not a licensed residential realtor, for example.
Right.
Because this is a business that's going to go up and down. But here's the good news, is there's other facets to real estate. You know, there's commercial, you know, besides residential, there's property management.
Yes.
There's even opportunity in property tax. So when residential is on the downswing, a lot of times property management or commercial might be on the upswing.
Right.
So, you know, don't go through with blinders on, diversify yourself and learn more. So that way you'll stay in the business longer. But you got to get out there and start networking. That's the other thing.
Sure.
I see this younger generation, and they seem to have this mindset that the business is just going to come to them, you know, and like, no, you're in business for yourself.
That's it.
You have got to go out there and get it.
So
And
I don't disagree with you, by the way, in just about all that. And I appreciate that. What I find is much of our Gen Z and millennials, I'd say, are much more self-driven, self-starters, and they're figuring their way. And of course, sometimes, you know, we'll talk again with our supervisors, or Penny and I is going to, you know, do we need to reel some people in or whatever? And it's not because, you know, they're doing anything wrong. It's just we want to make sure that they're doing it right. You know, we don't want them to get themselves in trouble or anything. But, you know, where my generation was, I mean, I grew up in this business when I was 25 years old, we had weekly MLS meetings. And so I would go every week. And so I'd meet the old listing agents, and that was great for me, because the thing that was always good for me was, well, gosh, if I meet these guys, if I present them an offer at some point, they're going to say, oh, I like that kid, or whatever it might be. And so, and I still think that's an important component that, you know, we probably, at leadership sides need to do better when we're talking to this young generation. And probably it's the network within itself, because, you know, we have coaches, and I have people, I've said this myself, said it yesterday, 2 days ago, to someone. I said, you know, yes, it's great to go to different, you know, realtor events or this or that or something. But I said, but you're not picking up clients there. And so you got to have a mixture of both. And I think that goes. I want to go back to national. I want to get a little more kind of, a little more granular on a couple of things. Talk about a couple of things going in the industry. So first thing first, Compass has come out and basically said they're against clear cooperation. So for those that don't know Compass, because we live a little bit of a bubble here in El Paso, Compass is now the largest company in the country via sales volume. They came out overnight. They were, kind of a seed funded company that has done exceptionally well. Their goal was to get 20% market share in a couple of years, and guess what? They did it, and they outbeat Realogy's NRT, which is now Coca-Cola, corporate-owned company, which had about 45,000 agents. Compass has just now came out and said they're acquiring at properties in the Christie's brand for $444 million. By the way, that's the 8th largest brokerage in the company. So we're seeing consolidation and acquisition at a high level. The upside and the downside of that is there are two sides of it, but I want to focus on your side of that, and is that they're coming saying, they're back to national MLS, and they said a national MLS, if it has to be Zillow, it has to be Zillow, because they're the only ones that have been able to do it. Now, of course, people like myself, I cringe at that. I mean, the idea of having any contracts with any Zillow or Zillow-owned companies is not. I'm not in favor. I don't even like the fact that you guys have showing time, but it's unfortunately it is what it is in our industry. So you have that. Then you have companies like EXP and Real, who I agree with by 100%, came out and said, we're not going to do cooperating broker commissions anymore. We're just not going to do it. We think there's too much risk still there, even with the lawsuits and everything. So now we're just going to do concessions. It's the same way. It's still getting paid out. We just want it written that way. Where do you see, to me, these all correlate together. It goes back to the MLS and goes back to lawsuits. Where do you see our industry in 5 years? Do you see us moving to some potentially national MLS like Compass is driving? Or do you see us going to where there is no more really cooperation anymore, and it's direct? Or do you see it being still a mixture of both?
So again, I go back to foresight.
Okay.
So what I see is you have these they see an opportunity. There's no doubt with the MLSs.
Yeah.
So they're trying to, get into it more of it's going to feel like more like a monopolized,
Sure.
So to me, I look at it from a foresight and say, okay, are we going to just sit and wait till it happens? Or are we going to go out there and do something about it?
Right.
I'm the type that I want to go out and do something about it.
Yes.
Because I don't really believe in it. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be great for us, but even for the public as well. So now that's where I said, I mentioned the boundaries thing.
Yes.
So now you'll see, we started out with our data share agreement. Now we have with Las Cruces. You're going to get ready. It's coming. I'll let you all know right now. I believe it went out yesterday. So we just finished up, or it's going out this morning, that we now are going to have the data share agreement with the New Mexico MLS, with the state.
Fantastic.
And now that one's going to be through RPR, because there's a lot of moving parts on how these work. But I'm already in communication. Midland wants to come on in the Odessa area. So they want to come on to do it. We're already talking to Tucson. And Tucson wants to start doing it. So that's my vision, is for us to start getting prepared and have developed these relationships. Because when it comes down, if we have all that going and it's running in the right direction, because all of us are like, you know what, we're really happy the way this is working. Then when something comes to that, we are in a position to where we can say, no, we don't need it. We're going to survive without you. So the other things that my plan is to start working with Mexico.
Yes.
In API, because they're on our Flex MLS system.
Wonderful.
So that's what I'm trying to align first with those, and then start working our way back in.
How does that work in the politics of things? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Ernesto was just showing me, if you go to the GEPAR site, there's I guess it's called Breaking Boundaries is what it said. I don't have my glasses on, Ernesto. Sorry, I'm an old man. But and so I think I assume that's an article that kind of breaks it down. So, we do this data sharing. So, I mean, right now, I can't even tell you guys, I want to say probably it costs us upwards of $20,000 a year. We're members of HAR, San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas, Austin, Las Cruces, getting ready to join Albuquerque. What does data sharing, what value does that provide to the population, as well as the membership population, but also to agents or companies like yourselves?
Right now, I mean, I'm a firm believer in we got to crawl before we walk.
Okay.
So it's kind of baby steps. So right now, really, if you look at our data share, it's just basically, listings. It's like everybody's agents are able to look at their listings. It's more convenient, because if you're on your MLS logged on, then you can immediately go to these and see these other markets. So that's how it starts, though.
Okay.
Then what we'll look at is, right now we don't share sales information.
Right.
Because again, until we develop this relationship,
Yes.
see how it's going, then we'll start looking at adding more to it.
Okay.
But I think that on the public side, I mean, they're already seeing it with the Zillows and the Realtor.coms and all that other world. And I feel like if we don't start doing something and informing of what our MLS is and communicating, then we're gonna end up being left in the dark. I mean, I feel like they're gonna push us out at some point. And that's what I don't want. And the other thing is the most important thing I can say for us as far as realtors and brokers is losing control and now no longer owning the data.
Yeah.
We already saw that there was an acquisition out in Colorado,
100%.
and that's where they didn't look and look at the fine print that they don't have control and they no longer own the data. And that can mean down the road, like, we don't need you anymore.
That's a beautiful, that what he's talking about is this was REI Colorado or whatever they call it, REI Colorado, I can't remember the name of it, but it is one of the largest MLSs in the country. And what is interesting about that is it was a private equity hedge fund type of organization that came in and purchased it. But as long as they control the data, it's a guaranteed revenue. It is a monopoly to a certain degree until someone else comes in and figures out how to either provide that or get that data as well. So I want to go back to the clear cooperation, and so obviously the expansion of the data sharing, the boundaries, crossing boundaries, which I think is a smart thing. For the agent that's on a call like this right now, what's that mean for them? Besides they can see it on their MLS, what does that mean for them as far as how? Besides from a data perspective, is there any other upside value of that for them?
So again, I believe our mission statement here with the association, and what really attracted me to take this position is that our job is to help our members be more successful at what they do and more efficient at what they do.
Okay.
So by doing it, it kind of expands their market. That's what I'm trying to do, is open these doors. Yes, okay, maybe if we're crossing state lines, you're not dual licensed, but that doesn't mean there's still not an opportunity there, because you can still get a referral. And there's still income there that you would have never even had to begin with. So I'm looking at how can they make more money? That's the opportunity that I see. Like, how can we help our members be more successful? It's money. It's how can they make more money? That's what I'm looking at. So I kind of always take things and I look at it. If it's me, what would I do? Where do I think I could make that money or extra money? And then once we start that, then it's our job now to start communicating it to our members. Okay, here's what the door's opening. Here's what you can do. Let's start doing this. Now we're doing some of these within the state. So now within the state, you are licensed. You're licensed in the state. So that's going to help you there. It's expanding that opportunity to do things. Because if you have somebody that's moving out and you have a client, well, if you don't have an in anywhere, well, you're not going to get a piece of that. They're gone. Or even somebody coming in, because with them out there, they can say, hey, we're not licensed. I'm a New Mexico, licensee, but I'm not licensed in Texas. But I'd like to do, and probably y'all other kind of, if you bring a client and we sell it, we're willing to cut you a referral fee, whatever that might be. But that's the thing, but we got to start. And if we start it, I think it'll evolve.
Okay. Interesting. It's been, so over my too many years in this business, it's been interesting. I worked for the company that actually created IDX, that the Justice Department nearly went after them and nearly went to the Supreme Court. It's a company called Zip Realty, who built the original, said, let's go scrape the data and put it online, from MLS books, and to kind of see where we are there to today. We've seen vows, we've seen all kinds of things kind of come into play. To me, it's still all about the data. I'm sure there's the other membership pieces and everything. How, if we start seeing, a move to decouple MLS from the association, what does that mean for the NAR? What does it mean for Texas Realtors? What does it mean for GEPAR?
Well, look, there's already talk of other lawsuits that have been filed.
Yes.
One definitely that Texas Realtors has is where they're saying, hey, why are we forced to be a member of the association in order to be a member of the MLS? That's a big one. And I felt that's going to come down the road anyway. NAR has got a big job ahead of them.
Oh,
because
yeah.
now that I always said, once the 26 thing is over,
Yeah.
now let's see how many members they can keep, because
100%.
and you can see them, they're working hard to try to create value now because they got too comfortable.
Yeah.
It was too easy. You know, this three-way agreement thing was kind of like, you know, we were actually, they didn't really have to market for members, because when you come in here locally, we're saying, okay, you have to be a member of our local, our state, and national,
Right.
in order to be a member here. So we were doing the business for them. Well, now they're going to have to, because I think it's going to come back more and more where they say, no, this can't be mandatory, guys. They have to be an option where each agent can say, I don't want to be a member of NAR, or I don't want to be a member of Texas Realtors. And then, you know, just the local association. Texas, I think, not so much, because they do a lot. I can see a lot of value in what Texas Realtors does. There's no doubt, just with the forms alone.
Right.
You know, and we do it right a lot better than other states.
Right.
But national, that's a different story.
And we've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I believe it's at the state level, Alabama is now the state Alabama Realtors, is that correct, is questioning decoupling from NAR.
Right.
And
part of it stems from another lawsuit with Keller Williams.
Okay.
Where the agreement kind of has verbiage in there that we don't have to be members of NAR.
Wow.
But I brought this up to the state at Texas Realtors, because I said, this is, again, I look in the future. I said, this to me is a red flag to say, what are you going to do? Because if it comes down to, so what, as a local association, I'm going to say, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you don't have to be NAR, but you can't be a member of us unless you're a member of NAR. I mean, it's going to come down to that. And are we going to start losing business?
Correct. Because
of that. So we're going to have to really look at that.
And what Tony's referring to is when we started seeing the settlements, and the first settlements that came out were Realogy, Anywhere, Remax. That was one of the conditions was that we can't force our members to be, or I'm sorry, we can't force our agents. The companies were saying we can't force our agents to be members. And of course, you know, it's, some people could look at Texas and say, well, how can I not be a member? I need the forms. I need, you know, in our case, they need the data, the MLS and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think Texas is in a unique place because it provides value just at the forms level alone.
Yes.
Now, could companies go out and get attorneys to draw up their own forms? Yes, they could. And then what does that look like? But, you know, you still have the data piece that is, and again, companies like us, we could possibly figure out, well, how do we get past that because of the large amount of data that or the large amount of inventory that we have. But, you know, it doesn't make sense at the end of the day. So I want to make sure we leave it open for questions, but I want to get back to the agent level. I really wanted to ask you, we could be here all day. Sorry. I'm sorry if they're like, all right, Frank, shut up. But I'm really interested in all of this. If I'm a brand new agent that just got into business, and let's say I'm a millennial or Gen Z or whatever, I went through my orientation, you know, why is it important for me to get involved at the local, potentially state and national level, as a realtor?
So to me, it's information, for one, because there's a lot that goes down, especially national, throughout the US.
Yes.
Will it come all the way to home or not? Maybe not. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be aware of it to start preparing for it. That's how I look at it. So to me, it's great information to be part of this and get out there and see what's going on, because then I can already start on a plan that if that reaches home, we're ready for it. So Texas Realtors is totally different. They really do a great job at really communicating and really assisting and helping us.
Right.
But for the new agents, you need it. You need that because it's ever changing.
Yes.
First of all, in Texas, you know, you have a legislative year every 2 years. You got to stay up on that, and we got to stay up on fighting that, because there's some stuff that are trying to be proposed, these bills and stuff from the Senate and House that we're like, oh no, these make no sense, and they will really change the landscape for us. So we got to get out there and find it. So, you know, it's important for them to be involved and stay informed.
Yes.
Because it's really going to help you in the end. And the job you do. Not to mention that if you go with a client and they bring something up that they saw or heard, and you have no idea, that's probably not very good, because they're like, wait, we're talking about your profession and your industry, and you don't even know about it.
Sure. Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, So yesterday I was talking to we're putting my clear title hat on, our attorney, and he's going to be here actually as a shameless plug, December 18th, doing CE credits here at GEPAR. And the class, he's doing two classes, and they're both hour each, but they're both CE credits. And Clear Title's bringing them in, and it's straight out of Austin. And it's all about the changes and the fact that our contracts and our forms are constantly changing, and because of the legislative piece. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And so, and kind of the joke is, it's like, I mean, anything can happen in Austin, and of course, referring to the Capitol and the legislative system. So it's interesting that you say that, because that's exactly kind of why he's come to teach that class. One more question geared around being a new agent, then I want to open this up. Besides, I always say knowledge is power. So, and I think I said that for when I sent out about this meeting, like, join us, come listen. The more you understand, whether it's at a micro level here in locally or at a macro level nationally, it's going to help you understand our industry and our business better. What's the first thing a new agent should do? Get involved with committees?
It's first thing, you're in sales. Networking is critical. Of course. And in networking, I mean, most of the agents they're coming in to think, oh, it's clients. It's meeting. No, it's more than that.
Right.
I always tell them that's why it involves so many affiliates. I'm growing the affiliate side of it, purpose, and creating more value. Because I came in, and first thing I did was ask everybody. I needed feedback. Yeah. And I wanted feedback from members, not from necessarily just the board or our employees. No, I wanted to talk to you. Right. What do you see? Right. So when I started doing that, that's what started giving me more the idea.
You knew better than ask me, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So, but I needed the feedback to see what, what's really important for them and what's not. I mean, a lot has to do even with the MLS, is all these different applications that we have, like the cloud CMAs, a Remind. Are we using them? Now we have a way to track that now, but when I went out and just sat with the realtors, I'd like to see you do a listing. Yes. And I like to see how you do it and what you're using, our tools that we provide you. So when they started, and then I went to these conferences, especially for Flex MLS. Right. I realized they're only using 90, maybe 50% of what it can do for them. Sure. So big thing for me is education. Yes. That's when, and it's not just for the new members, it's even for us older members. Because there are some great things out there. That's part of the value that we're going to bring to you from the MLS and the association, is to understand and show, because we really take a lot of time to understand these, to say, this is really a great tool that's going to help them be more efficient and more and better educated, and to bring more business as we go along. But we need to show them how to use these tools. And so that's going to be a big thing. The other thing is, how do we do that? We can't always get everybody to come here to GEPAR. Right. Next year, I'm already going to plan. You'll see, and I may start with Home Pros, is going out to you. Now, you all do a meeting here. Those of you that do meetings here, we're going to ask, can we get some time? Because we want to go through a lot of these things for you. The answer is yes. You can understand. So yeah, we would always welcome that. The more we can empower and train and help our and develop our agents, at that's a key kind of core fundamental of ours. I think there's a fine line in what you're saying, and I guess I'm going back still to the beginning of the question. Is I have so many new agents, and then we also have so many agents that have been in the business, and I like to break kind of our company down into kind of, let's say, four buckets. And I probably have a group that's 2 involved. They come to every training we have. We're doing a couple of trainings a week, sometimes even more. Events, we have a couple events per month. Then they're coming all the things here, and then there's other networking events. How do you actually go out and sell? And I think the idea I struggle with is, when is too much too much? Number one. And I bet you guys do the same. Like, is it too much? And then the second is what do they really need versus to be successful in this business? Because at the end of the day, my business and your business rely on membership. Yeah. And if the members can't hack it in this business, they're out. Yeah. And it's just, I just don't understand. So, I mean, have you guys, how do you, is there anything that you do to say, gosh, what's too much, or what's really important? What's going to really help them make more money besides just being a good company guy or a good member, kind of like that? So one of the first obstacles that I have, or I should say challenges, coming in, and I started learning obviously early on, is getting my hand slapped as an association. What are you going to put out there education-wise from brokers? Right. Because brokers say, no, that's my job. I'll train that. And that's fine, but
Mhm.
I just want you all to know that your association and what is particularly me,
Mhm.
I'm here to try to help you, whatever it is you want to do.
Great.
You know, and if it means bringing somebody in and
Mhm.
do the better education, because really when the learning process is frequency. I mean,
Yes.
the more you do it or have it,
Mhm.
you're going to get better at it. You know,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's hard to just do it, you know, start it and just do it with one time and then expect everybody's going to get, you know, they have it
For
down.
sure.
But I think there should be a lot on sales because I've been in sales all my life.
Right.
So it's an art. There's an art to it.
Yes.
You know, but it takes time, but it also takes training.
No, I agree with you. Well, and I think maybe that's something I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
We have a timer over here. So guys, you know, I was kind of spreading it out. I want to open it up, get here so we can start up some questions. But, and I think maybe that's the question maybe I'm looking for is how can we help we can educate these people on the laws and all the changes and all that stuff. How can we really help make something, we keep them out of trouble maybe, but how do we help them where they can start seeing something that is actually tangible, which is their bank accounts and things like that. So, you know, my hope would be as you continue your tenure to make more value, how do we help our agents do that? And maybe that's up to us ultimately, but I think as a group, the members need that too.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is help me help you.
Yeah, 100%.
Communicate with me and I will do everything I can to help us do it.
You know, I had a small broker I was speaking with a couple of weeks ago, and we'll end it here and we'll get to questions, but you know, and he was kind of like, you know, you guys just seem to provide so much for your agents and do so much, and you're always doing these big trainings, and I see them all and all the pictures and stuff. And I said, well, it comes with it. You have to do that because we wouldn't be where we were today if we didn't do that. And I think it's this catch-22 of how do we provide value without it being too much. And I think that's the only thing I can say is it's for us, it's a constant lever. It's like, did we go too much? You know, sometimes I'll do like, we have 7 items happening. There were 7 events happening this week. And I like to sit there and go like when are these people going to sell real estate? When are they going to be with their family and stuff like that?
And I'll give you a good example of that is our newsletter.
Yeah.
Because our newsletter, I get it. Realtors have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
They were used to a certain thing, but a lot of times I get to where, oh no, we have you blocked. And I'm like, why do you have us blocked? I said, you need to go and look at what we're doing. It's not like it used to be. If we're putting information, it's because it's information that's great that you need for your industry.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to depend on that. Did you go out to NAR's website and see whatever's going on or TR's? If there's something critical that I think is really important to you, your profession, we're going to put it in our newsletter.
Well, you and I have the same, with Ernesto as well, because Ernesto is kind of controlled in communications, at least you have for many of these years. We have the same problems. And I make the joke with my agents all the time. I'm going to send you messenger dove smoke signals. I mean, for this call today, you know, we have a WhatsApp channel, we have a private Facebook group, we have a text messaging service, and we have a MailChimp email account, which we sent, or email address that probably sent out 2 or 3 messages, people, hey, remind you, you know, and then I'm lucky to get, you know, 10, 15, 20%. I don't even know how people are on the call, you know, that show up now. A lot of people will watch it after and things like that. And that's why, you know, we've created a monster doing these on Zoom and recording them because now people are like, oh, well, I'll just watch it later. And I had a bunch of comments yesterday on a training I did, which they weren't even on the training. They watched it after. To me, that's the biggest challenge we have. Is that the same for you?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And one thing we're planning for next year is, especially when we do these educational training courses and stuff that we do, like on our software and the old softwares that integrate with it, is videotaping and then having a video library out there for y'all to access. Wonderful. So if you were able to, if you attended and you're like, oh man, I remember they talked about it, you can go watch it and play it back. If you weren't able to attend, you can go watch it and play it back.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've had some people request that we do that when we do our meetings here, and I've purposely not done that because I don't want people not to. I want the collaboration. I want people to come, but at the end of the day, it's a catch-22, and I keep the same thing. All right, enough about that. So thank you. I want to open it up for questions. You know, I don't know if we've got questions in the chat. If we do, I don't. Or does anyone just want to ask questions while we've got Tony here?
Fire away.
Yeah, hi, Tony. Hi, Tony. Stephanie Galbraith. How are you?
Hi, great. How about yourself?
Good, good. Thank you. It's very interesting. Like to hear what you have to say always. Yes, sir. I have a question. Why is GEPAR doing political endorsements?
Okay. The main reason is let's say there's sign ordinances that was critical where they were just saying, nope, sorry, realtors, you can no longer put your signs out there. Well, if we weren't involved, we wouldn't have been able to get that changed. When I was at the Central Appraisal District, they went out, this was back in maybe 2004. They went out and said, sorry, you got to start paying personal property tax on your vehicle because as a realtor, you're using it for business. We were able to go as a realtor to go out and fight that, and we have to use our political local people to help us get that done. We can't do it just on our own. They're going to have a lot more influence than we are. So we have that relationship. It really is going to pay dividends down the road. It's the same thing with the impact fees that just happened in our short-term rentals. I mean, if we just let them go and give them free reins, oh my gosh, it's going to be a disaster for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate you answering.
Sure, you're welcome.
It's a great question. Thank you, Stephanie. Who else?
Tony, hi, Tony, it's Martha.
Hi, Martha.
Tony, can you please expand and share the voting numbers from realtors compared to the city
Okay.
so they can understand how important it is for us realtors to vote?
Sure, and I may have
Thank you.
Ernesto chime in with me, but especially right now in the runoff, you know, we have 3,100 members. We're the largest trade organization in El Paso. A lot of times people think, oh, my vote doesn't really count. It doesn't make a difference. But I'm here to tell you right now, with the numbers that are in this runoff election compared to the election in November, they are night and day. And our votes could definitely make the difference in our candidates to win their positions. So as of yesterday, early voting, we've only had just over 13,000 votes. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, in November and early voting on the first day, we had like 30,000. So it's a huge difference. So any of these candidates, if they may have had a lead, it's gone. Now it's all about who's going to come back out. And a lot of times I don't think people realize that, you know, because sometimes, you know, we've talked and we do calls. Oh, no, well, I already voted. But they don't realize, no, it all starts over again, you know, with these runoff elections. So it's critical to get these people on. I don't know if that answered your question, Martha.
Hey, Martha, do you want to expound on how y'all, the process? I know you played a big part in screening the candidates. Do you care to share any of that with people on the call?
I'll tell you what, for me, it would be best if Ernesto touched on that because he did, and I have to tell everybody, Ernesto and of course Tony did an amazing job getting all these politicians to come talk to us and to understand the importance, and like Tony said, that we play in the elections now. But Ernesto, I mean, his great relationships paid off. So can Ernesto mention something about that? Because it's really from him that
Sure,
we...
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't know. He's not mic'd up. Well, he's trying to get mic'd up, or I can. Well, I'm intertwined here. I don't know if I can get my mic off you. You want to just come over close to us, Ernesto, and say, or
Hold on. I'll get that here in a second. I mean, Tony can explain better. Just Tony, go ahead and say, you know, I mean that the process that we scan all the candidates and that we ask them very tough questions, everything dealing from home property taxes to homestead, that we really want to know their education because that's how we make our decisions.
Right. So just so y'all know, they go, and this is what we hear from them, from our candidates, that we have the most intense interview and questions than anybody else that they've seen and they've gone to. The questions are very direct. Obviously, we're spearheading directly toward what matters in our industry, in our business. But they go through an intense interview process. And we conducted like 54 interviews of candidates and then whittled down to the ones that we actually endorsed and supported. So it's critical for us to make sure that they're already thinking and they're on our side. And I'm going to tell you that it's amazing when we ask them some of these property tax questions, how much they don't even know. They've got it wrong. And and of course, everybody looks at me and I'm like, they say, well, Tony, and I'll go, no, that's not totally correct. And then I'll go in and say what it is. And they go, I didn't know that. So that's the main problem with the education especially on property tax, and property taxes are critical for us here at home. So they go through a big process with us. You have a committee, a government affairs committee. They have so many that volunteer to do these interviews because we did it over a period of like 5 days. I mean, sometimes from 8 to 6 at night. So, you know, a big shout out to all of those that volunteered their time to do this, but it is critical for all of us.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you, Martha, for all your dedication. And we're looking forward to celebrating you tonight at the installation.
Yeah.
Great, we're gonna have a great time. And Tony, please mention about early voting. I hate to tell you this, but
Yeah.
please mention it.
Yes, yeah, it's so critical for us to early vote, get out there. The lines are short, guys. It's nothing like it was in November. I mean, I know I went the first day in the November election to Bassett, and people were standing in line 2.5 hours. It's nothing like that. People are like the EPCC off of Hawkins, literally everybody's saying we walk in, vote, and we're out. And remember, there's not a lot on the ballot. And please, even if you're in a district that there's nobody in a runoff, remember, you still go in and vote for mayor. So go out there and vote for the mayor. That's important. But it's not going to take you long because you're really going to have just 2 votes. It's going to be whoever your district representative is and the mayor.
Interesting. All right. What other questions, guys? No questions?
We may have answered them all.
Yeah, we did a lot. You know what? I found this, just amazing. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah,
and for
absolutely.
being transparent and open. I know some of the questions were not probably the most fun questions to get asked,
all right.
but we would love to welcome you anytime to our meetings, you and Ernesto, or anyone from the association that has a messaging that could help our members really leverage the value of whether it's the local, state, or national association of realtors. And I think we would like to continue to obviously support you guys and support you as you take on all these new challenges going into 2025.
It'd be absolutely my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you,
it.
Frank.
All right.
Everybody,
Thanks, guys. Have a
great
wonderful
night.
weekend. For
Yep.
those who are going to be the installation, we'll see you tonight.
And Merry Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas to you all.